Welcome, Philip. Hello, hello. Everyone's coming in. Bang on. Right, I'm going to get started because we never punish good behaviour. You're here on time. So welcome to number 6 in the Change Ninja Forum. Let me share my screen. And we will get started. So lovely to see some new faces here, new ninjas. I always like to see the ninjas, especially new faces, and hopefully we can grow that ninja crowd. So today we are here to talk about debunking change fatigue. There we go, the slides are up. Is it a myth or is it a reality? So before we start, you perhaps don't know each other and you perhaps don't know me. I'm not going to get us all to introduce each other because it will go on forever and nobody really listens to what anyone's job title is. But I'm recording it. We'll chat as we go. Please have your mics on if you can. And we'll get to know each other through the session. They tend to be, the more interactive everybody is, the better the sessions go. A little bit about me, if you don't know me, I have authored the Change Ninja book series. The first one is a choose your own adventure book based in the workplace, full of tools, but you get to make all the decisions. If you make the wrong decision, you might die, but you get to start again because it's a game. The second book is The Change Ninja Returns, and this time it's personal. It's about managing emotional change that impacts on you, whether it's at work or at home. It's full of some more tools, some additional tools to the first book, but it's based on my real story of using my own learning and teaching on me when something bad happened to me. So that's much more about personal change and when you're having to manage your own emotions. We do have the 4-Day Ninja Challenge, which goes really well with both books, but particularly book 1. And I am launching the next training program in a few weeks. So if you're remotely interested, get in touch to find out. Because you're here, I will give you a nice chunky discount. So enough about me. You're here, you've given up 40 minutes of your life to learn something new. So I would like to know what your greatest hopes for today are. If I could do anything and you go skipping off down your home office corridor with glee, what would it be? What is your greatest hope for today? And any fears? Is there anything you don't want me to do? Your time is precious. So let me know what you want to do and what you don't want to do. And when you're ready, just please shout out what your greatest hopes or fears are.
No role playing, please. And then greatest hope, I guess, is the answer. Like, can I have the answer? Like, do people get it? Do people get exhausted by all the change? So yeah, can you tell me how to sort it out, please?
Brilliant. Anyone else?
Don't ask me at the end what I've learned.
Okay. If I don't ask you, how do I know if you've learned anything?
By coming back.
Okay.
By me coming back, I should say.
Okay. Brilliant. Okay.
I think I'd like to get past, as probably a hope, is how to get past the. I've done 35 years of work, and oh look, this is coming round again. It's every 10 years, it's the same idea, or some version of it seems to come round again, and it's almost like we're going up and down and up and down.
Groundhog Day.
Yeah, and the trouble is after you sort of feel like whether it's true or not, it's whether you feel you've hit it for the second or third time. Oh yeah, it didn't work last time.
Okay, brilliant. I'm going to reflect on that as well. Is there anything else before we move on? Okay, so your fears then, no role playing. I promise I won't get you to role play. I will ask you to interact, but that's entirely up to you. Don't ask you what I've learned. Honestly, again, I can't promise that fear won't come true because we're here to learn and you don't have to share. So how about I'm going to ask you what you've learned, but it's up to you whether you volunteer to share that. And if you want to talk to me afterwards about what we've learned, then you know where I am and you can get in touch and put a meeting in my calendar. Does that work?
This is beginning to sound like a BBC Radio 4 interview, but yes, okay.
I will ask you, I won't ask you to share it, I will ask you to write it down. The
Okay.
reason being is if you write it down, you're much more likely to remember it because you get that muscle memory and you'll be writing it down just as soon as you've learned it. So it's much more likely to stick. If you wait for a week, you'll be like, oh, I did so much last week, I don't remember it. So I can't promise that won't fear come true, but I won't ask you personally to share.
Okay.
So hopes then, we want an answer to this old change fatigue myth, how to get past it, and that it's something new, same old, same old. So Peter, I'd like you to think about that as we go. How do I turn this into something new and not something same old? Is that okay?
Okay.
And I'll come back on that at the end. So if today is rubbish, it's not my fault, it's your fault because you've told me what you want to do. And if you didn't tell me what you wanted to do, then you had the opportunity. So that's your fault too. So joking aside, it's a really good tool to align people at the start of something. We've got rid of what people don't want to do, we've promised not to do them-ish. And we've formed an agenda based on your hopes. Much, much better than a pre-formed agenda. One of the tools that I always suggest you start a meeting with. So change fatigue. I ran this poll before the session. Does it exist? Is it myth or is it reality? It got quite a lot of response. 23 votes is actually quite a lot for a LinkedIn poll because they whiz by, and I think there's been more since. But in general, the results seem to be, it depends. Yes, it can exist, but it doesn't always exist. So I'm going to challenge that a little bit. I don't think it does exist, but we'll find out in this session. If we're going to disprove something or prove something, we need some data. I'm a scientist by background, and all ninjas are scientists. We need to just, it's not just our opinions and beliefs, but we need some actual hard facts to convince something, to convince people about something. So let's collect some data. If you've got a bit of paper, if you could scribble something like this down, I'm going to ask you 12 questions in 2 blocks of 6. So we're going to do questions 1 to 6, and I'd like you to put a score against each one as we go through them. And then I'm going to do a second block, 7 to 12, with a score. Don't worry, they're not difficult questions. So are we ready? Are we ready? The score we're going to do is out of 10, so 0 to 10. 0 being, this makes me feel utterly exhausted, unmotivated. It can wait till tomorrow. I'm just going to hide under a duvet. You know, those really horrible, I just don't want to even look at this kind of feelings. The 10 score, if I share something that gives you a 10, it means you're excited, motivated. Tell me more about it. I can't wait. I just want to get on and do this. That makes sense? 0 to 10. Okay, we're going to go quite quickly. So the first scenario, number 1, you're going on the holiday of your dreams in 3 weeks' time, all expenses paid. 0 to 10, how does it make you feel? Don't think too much about it, just scribble a number down. You've just been offered a job in your ideal organisation, one you've always dreamed about working for. 0 to 10. You've just been offered a promotion and a pay rise, you don't even know why, but hey, promotion, pay rise. You've just been invited to lead on the exciting project of the year. You're going to lead it. You're going to just nail this stuff. Everyone's going to know you are. It's going to be amazing. Number 5, you've won the lottery. Not silly amounts that make you go off your, make you go and do crazy things, but enough to have a really nice life. And number 6, you're moving to your dream house, the one you've always dreamed about living in the ideal location. Now, I'd just like you to add up that score. What's your total score? So your maximum score is 60, your minimum score is 0. Anyone share the score they've got?
56.
Wow, that's high. 56. Anyone beat 56?
48.
We're getting they're high scores. Brilliant. Right. So we've got some really good scores coming in there. So second round of questions. Are we ready? There's a reorganisation at work. It's announced on Monday morning. Everyone's going to have to reapply for the job. You don't know anything else. That's all they're telling you. 0 to 10. Write down your score. Climate change. We all know it's going to happen, but it's actually going to happen in the next 2 years and things are going to drastically change. And not for the best. Another project's come your way your boss wants you to do. You are already working all the hours you can and behind on all of your project work, but you've got this other one to lead. How does it make you feel? Afternoon, Colin. There's another pandemic coming. There's going to be definite lockdowns. It's going to be worse than the last one. There's no vaccine. Number 11. You've just got to grips with the new system at work and they've decided that they want to replace it already. You've just got to grips with it. A whole upheaval. The current one does exactly what it needs to do, but yet another change. And AI's coming. They've implemented it already in 3 teams. It's going to replace 75% of your job. What's the score for 7 to 12? Total score.
7.
7. What was the other one?
17.
So yours 17 versus 56, Peter.
Mm-mm.
Who said 7?
Oh, I did, and my other one was 55.
32.
Oh, they're in the middle. They're in the middle. That's quite a contrast of scores. So the one scores, the second set are giving us much lower scores, it seems, than the first two. We've got that exhausted doom. Oh, I don't even want to think about it. Versus excitement, motivation, and all of the good stuff. Has everybody got a difference, a reasonable difference? Does anyone get the same score? Okay. So in the first lot of scores, what's happening is it's called brain friendly approach to change. I've presented you with some scenarios. They feel quite familiar. They're perhaps things you've already imagined and dreamt of before. You know, getting that dream job, going on that dream holiday. You know what your perfect house would look like. And because they're familiar, your brain's not eking out of it. It's already imagined this amazing future. So it's activated the reward response. You can imagine how good it will be. There might be some fears and anxieties and doubts in there, but you can imagine how good it's going to be. And you become goal seeking and motivated to work towards it. It doesn't fill you with dread. So you get all of those good feelings that go with it. You get the excitement, the insights, you start to collaborate with people and trust more, you're much more open, you're motivated, and all of that gives you more energy. So you'll find that if you're going on holiday in 3 weeks' time, you'll suddenly get rid of all of that work that's piled up on your desk. If you're going on your dream holiday, you will suddenly have heaps of energy to do all of that stuff. It's really positive. So the good examples I gave, the things that excited us, activate the reward response. And then we did the second lot of questions. And we got lower scores because that activated the brain's traditional response to change. The brain saw them and it detected something that was out of the ordinary. This isn't going to be good for me. This could be really bad for me. And that feels like pain. The brain feels it as pain. It might not be physical pain, it's social pain, but the brain feels the pain. And because of that, it uses much more energy, which it doesn't like to do. The brain doesn't like to use energy because then it has to go out and find more food to replenish that energy. And the way the brain evolved in the olden days, many years ago, that required us going out into dangerous situations. So the brain doesn't like to use all of that energy. It likes to conserve energy. So when this happens, something that could be bad for us, the brain automatically activates the threat response. The fight, the flight, the fear, all of those things we've heard about. The cortisol, the adrenaline, it kicks into our tummy. It makes us feel really anxious and nervous and, oh, it's just going to be awful. And that's when we get those negative feelings coming through. And it's exhausting. The brain, because the brain's using much more energy, imagining all of this stuff and thinking about all the things that could go wrong. And it's just exhausting. The immune system kicks in. We're quite stressed. Just thinking about it stresses us out. So the immune system's responding to that, which uses more energy. Does anybody ever go on holiday and get ill on the first or second day after being busy at work? That's what's happening. Your immune system is activated all the time at work. a low level of stress. And as soon as you go on holiday and relax, the immune system's like, hey, I'm taking a holiday too. And you get the bugs that you picked up on the plane. That's why we get ill when we go on holiday, because our immune system's just been working in overdrive and we're just exhausted. We don't have that last oomph to manage that bug. So I gave you 12 scenarios. Some of them activated the reward response. Some of them activated the traditional approach pain response. And we got very, very different scores. And the second lot probably gave us that change fatigue that people talk about. Gemma, oh, Gemma's left, so she put a hand up. So that's what's going on here. Depending on what it is, depends on how our brain reacts and responds, and it will do this in an instant. We won't be conscious of this. It will switch on one of the responses and it will associate the feelings that we have with it, which will then trigger us to either be excited or exhausted, demotivated, all of those things. So my question is, if change fatigue is a real thing, why don't the first 6 trigger change fatigue? Because it's all change. All of these scenarios will require us to do something different and new. One group excites us, one group fatigues us. And that's why I think change fatigue is a myth, because it's not the change that's fatiguing us. It's the way we're responding to something that's happening to us, possibly something beyond our control. It's something that's being done to us. Winning the lottery is done to us. But our response to it is very different to something else like reorganization at work, where we need to reapply for the job. They all are about change. They all require us to change how we do things, what we do something new. But for one set, we're excited, and for the other, we're not. And that's why I think change fatigue is a myth, because it's about how we respond to the change. And how we respond to the change can lead to that top line happening, which is where the fatigue comes from. Does that make sense to everybody?
Mm-hmm.
So we need to redress the balance. I've put readdressing up there, my mistake. We need to be able to, we can't always control the thing. And quite often when we have change fatigue, as people call it, it's to do with things that we can't control. The reorganization at work, the pandemics, the climate change, whatever it is. And it's driving the exhaustion. We can't necessarily change that thing because it's outside of our control. We can't necessarily influence the thing that's causing that fatigue, but we can choose how we respond to it. And if we could respond to it a little bit more like it was an exciting thing, then guess what? The fatigue's going to decrease and the motivation's going to increase. So when you can't control the stressor, the only thing you can control is how you respond to it. So when you can't control that this thing has been around 3 times already in my lifetime career, and here we go again with the same old, looking at you, Peter, we can accept that and get really frustrated and fed up with it. And perhaps it has gone round. We've all seen that. We've all seen the reorganizations, the decentralizations, the mergers, all of that. They go around every 10 years. All the councils do it and the hospitals do it. We can't change that because it's beyond our control, but we can change how we respond to it. And that's the bit that we can make new and can control. So step 1, or top tip for addressing this. You can reframe the situation. You can reframe how you respond to it. The reorganization, I'm going to have to apply for my job. I don't know if I'm going to be in work. All of those stories you might have told yourself. Reframe it as there's a reorganization. I could use this as leverage to explore those other opportunities I keep talking about. This job isn't all that, and I've been moaning about it for months. So why don't I use this to help me go and find something different? The fears and the anxieties will still be there, but you'll have reduced them, and you'll be motivated to actually go and explore things. You'll be motivated to update your LinkedIn profile, to start talking to people. It will give you that little surge of adrenaline that pushes you forward towards a goal-seeking opportunity, towards something that's a bit less scary. So reframe it. There's a great book by Scott Adams on reframe, if you want to know more about it. There's another lockdown. It will give me a chance to, whatever you didn't do last time and you wish you had done, or whatever you've got on your list of things to do, what would another lockdown give you an opportunity to do? You've been given the extra project. I'm really, really busy, but in this new project, I can learn about X, Y, and Z, or get to work with these people I want to work with. Just reframe the story, because the more you shift the story and tell yourself that story, the better it will feel, the more excited you'll feel towards the goal. The AI implementation that's taken 75% of my job away, this is going to give me 75% of my time to do something different. I should start thinking about how I'm going to use that time just now. Don't assume it's going to take your job away. Start thinking about what you would do with that time. Start doing some of that doing of what you're going to do with that time. And guess what? You'll probably end up getting a really, really good job somewhere else that pays 3 times as much, because that you'll realize that that job wasn't the right thing for you anyway. It gives you the push to shift towards the positive. It gives you the shift of that balance. When you do that, not only are you telling yourself a good story, which activates the reward center, it's giving you data. It's giving you data that your brain says, okay, this isn't a great thing, but it's an opportunity to do X. It's giving you positive data that's goal seeking. And when you do that, it reduces the fatigue, because you're no longer thinking eek, you're thinking, ooh, if only, or I can get towards that. The other thing is you start to do some of the small steps towards that new goal, and that motivates you even more, because you're goal seeking, it's using less energy. So it starts to be familiar, it starts to be goal seeking, you start to tick things off and get the dopamine, so it starts to feel good, which pushes you forward even more. And after a while, that big thing, that reorg, the reapply for your job thing, it will almost seem inconsequential if you can master this. It really works. So reframe the narrative. If it's something that you don't want to do, reframe it in a way that reduces the pain for your brain. Write it down, say it out loud. If you repeat it a few times, it starts to feel real. I don't want to go to that party on Friday night. Reframe it. You know that party that you're dreading? I hate parties. Think, okay, I don't want to go to this party Friday night, but I do want to see Jim and Mary. So I'm going to see Jim and Mary on Friday night. It'd be really good to catch up with them. It takes away the dread and the fear and the pain that go into a party was triggering me to, I'm going to catch up with a couple of people I've not seen for a while. So I'm much more motivated. Second thing, imagine the future as if it's now. After this reorganization, I'm going to be sitting in this office and I'm going to be doing this job and this is going to be great and I'm going to be working with Jim and Mary and Seth. Imagine the future as if you're living it. Be really emotive with it. Live it, breathe it, feel it. Imagine the colors of the room you're working in. Imagine the team sitting around you, the people you're going to be working with. The more you can feel it and describe it with emotive language, the more real it will feel. Write it down, say it out loud. When you create the future as if it's now, your brain thinks you've already lived that future. So it creates fake good data for your brain to think this isn't a bad thing, this is a good thing, because this is going to get me that future that I can imagine. The more you can live the future as now, the less scary it will feel. And you can decide what that future looks like. It doesn't matter if it's a different future when you get there. The point is you're creating a positive future from this thing that's causing you the fatigue, as if you've already lived it, so you know that it's a good thing to strive towards. Your brain doesn't know it's not real data. The more emotive it is, the more you describe the colors, the feel, the smells, what it feels like to go into work on a Monday morning, all of that, the more your brain will take it as real data. And that reduces the anxieties and uncertainties. And top 3, in changing your response, you cannot control the thing that you can't control, but you can control your response. Does anybody ever go to the supermarket and you see somebody you really don't want to talk to? We've all been there, haven't we? And you're trying to keep an eye on where they are without looking directly at them, because if you do, they might look back and then you're going to have to speak to them. So you've got your eye on them without ever looking at them, and your goal is to escape the supermarket without bumping into them and chatting. Does everybody recognize that? We've all done it. They're perhaps doing the same. So changing your response is a bit like that. It's kind of, you know that thing's there and you don't want to engage with it. The reorg's there and I don't want to engage with it. Because the more you focus on the bad thing and try and get rid of the bad thing, the more it's triggering that anxiety center in your brain. It's like that person bumping into you continuously in the frozen aisle section of the supermarket. It's there, you can't get rid of it, but you kind of don't want to look directly at it. The scarf model, which is in the second book, and you can just Google it, it's David Rock's scarf model, is a really good way, because what it does is it allows you to look at what's being triggered from a brain perspective and focus on the least triggered. So the reorg, the reapply for your job thing, it's there. You can't get the data because there is none. There's nothing you can do about it. But you can think about, okay, what might I do differently? What might I do? I'm going to spend Monday updating my LinkedIn. I'm going to spend Tuesday updating my CV. I'm going to spend Wednesday looking at other alternative careers. It's still there, but you're not focusing directly on the thing and having to reapply for your job. What you're doing is looking at it different ways, getting yourself moving forward, motivated by other things. Google searching new jobs, new careers, whatever it is, they will all keep you motivated and away from the thing. And by the time that you've got more data on that reorg, you've probably got yourself a really great new job, or you're ready to move anyway. So you might just go, actually, I'm taking voluntary redundancy. I'm going to have a 3-month sabbatical and I'm going to become a vet, whatever your dream career is that comes out of that. So changing your response, don't focus on the thing that's causing the fatigue. Focus on something else. It might be in relation to it. It might get you past that goal, but it's a different way of doing it rather than trying to tackle it head on. Top tip 4, come on my course. So it's subtle promotion. It's not that subtle, is it? Next cohort's opening April the 3rd. So if you are interested in learning more about these kind of tips and tools with proper application, please do get in touch. We've got one in April and one in May starting. So we cover lots of these tools and how to retrain your brain to not focus on the negative. I'm going to stop and pause there because I've talked a lot, and thank you, Andrew. I would love to get some thoughts, comments, questions, chat going. If anyone's got anything to say.
That was really helpful, and I think it's interesting, given I was made redundant last year and what I went through. Actually, it's quite nice to see that I was probably doing some of those things, and maybe that's how it hadn't killed me by the end of the year. So that was really helpful. But I think probably the key thing for me is, how do you help other people do this?
Yeah. Good question. I think sharing just some of this thinking can help. Or if you can coach them, and if they're, I'm not going to have a job, and what if I don't get my job, I have to reapply for it. So what could you do just now to help you feel better? Just coaching questions, and try and steer them into, what does your LinkedIn profile look like if you're looking for other work? So it's about small manageable actions that distract you from the main thing, because when you it can be teeny, but however much you do, it will tick things off a list. Sometimes it's about doing something completely different. So take your mind completely off it. I talk about this in my second book, when my life blew up and I didn't know what to do. And, the temptation was to hide under the duvet. I just felt absolutely exhausted and demotivated by anything. So I just started cleaning out cupboards, because I knew I was going to probably have to sell the house at some point. I needed to get rid of things in the house, but it just makes you feel good, because you're clearing out, and decluttering a cupboard helps your brain declutter at the same time subconsciously. So some of it is just tricking your brain into a different way of thinking, because the more you focus on the thing, the worse you're going to feel. So sometimes it's just a distraction. What could you do that you would like to do that would help you in the here and now, and not worrying about that thing that's coming ahead? But people need to be receptive to it. Sorry, Rachel.
No, that's right. Well, there's only so much you can do, isn't there? No, that's perfect. Thanks.
But I think I've bought about 5 copies of Reframe Your Brain recently for people, because it's such an easy book to. It's just a list of reframes. You can't disagree with it. So even just that switching of some words around can just shift how you feel about something.
I was actually in Rachel's position, but a bit earlier on, a couple of years ago, and I did do a shift in my career. I'm finding it difficult to get into and get the experience I need. So I'm starting to consider, well, perhaps I did the wrong change in my life. So it's been hard work, and I don't know whether that's just because of the state of the job market right now, or if it's just because I'm getting to that time of life. So how do you balance that sort of?
So my
is this
first
the right
thing,
change?
My first thing would be to not think about, did you make the wrong decision previously, because that's moving you into that you're attacking yourself. So that will come into your thinking for the what next. So think about what you did previously. What did you do that worked well? What did you do that didn't work well? And did anything happen that you weren't expecting that worked well? Just do a quick review of that, and then think, how could I learn from that? What would I do differently this time? Or what would I do more of this time from those actions? So use it as a learning point. I talk about smart failure. If we get things wrong and beat ourselves up, it's failure. If we get things wrong and learn from it and use it for the next hurdle, then it's smart. So I would review what worked well and what didn't work well, and plan some of that in, because I suspect that's making you feel, what if I do the same again? So have a go at doing that, because that helps you reframe the what next as well. And sometimes it is a leap of faith, but it's only the wrong decision if you don't learn from it, if that makes sense. This is always learning.
Yeah,
it's
difficult. It is difficult, I know, because you've got so many more people as competition that have had the extra years of experience, especially when you change careers later in life. But thank you.
I know that's a very short thing. We could probably talk about this for an hour easily. So, but if you want to get into, if we want to chat after, let's do that. Sorry. But yeah, there's lots of ways to rethink some of that. But have a go at just learning from the past and learning about the good stuff and the bad stuff, because it really shifts your brain's thinking to moving forwards rather than backwards. Anyone else?
It was interesting doing the quiz. I mean, the first 6 questions, I mean, they're all relentlessly positive. You can see straight away, this is good for me, this works for me. I'm not sure why, but it does work for me. The second one was much more mixed, because whilst superficially they looked very negative, you could see opportunities. Like the AI one was the obvious one. You know, great, I've got, don't be frightened by, I'm not frightened by technology. I think when I get burnout, it's when stuff has been imposed. I mean, the classic one is the new IT system, or the new security system on your IT that hasn't been explained why you need it. It's just you have it. Or a new document management system on a project, and the last one didn't work, and this one won't work either. And all I can see is pain. I can't see a positive thing in it.
That's really good reflection. So the first one we can all imagine as good stuff. There's nothing negative in there for anybody.
You can see negative, but you have to work at it. I mean,
in the first 6.
Yeah, I mean, if I win the lottery, all these people are going to be hovering around me trying to get me to pay for everything.
So the first,
you can think of things which are negative, but
the first 6 trigger a positive response, and only then after you might think, oh, but hang on a minute, 3 weeks before I go on holiday, I've got all of these. So it's only after that you start to think about the things that could be negative out of it, but you've got the positive, so you're still motivated towards it. The second 6 are much harder to come up with a generic list of things that make us feel bad, because it depends on our experience. So for some people, a reorg and reapplying for the job, they'll sail through it because they've done it 15 times and they take the redundancy and they walk into another job. You know, the NHS do this. And all the folk that are really good at the job, they take the redundancy, and it's a healthy redundancy from the NHS. They go on holiday for a month, and then they start applying for NHS jobs, because it's only like 8 weeks or something before they can go back to work. It's mad. It's absolutely crazy. But so it's water off a duck's back. And actually it's a positive, because they're going to get the nice payoff, they're going to get a couple of months sabbatical, and then they're going to walk into job. So the second 6 is much harder, because it depends on your experience, and it depends on your past, and it also depends on how you dealt with it in the past. So even if you haven't been through those things, if you know how to reframe things, then it won't feel as bad either. And if you know that you've been through lots of change before, if you've, swapped careers lots, you'll know it will work out. If you've only done it once and you're not sure it was the right thing, then you've only got bad experience. So the more experience we have that's bad, when you put these things up, the more it will feel bad. And if you've got no data at all, it will feel bad, because your brain it just doesn't have the data to say it's going to be good. But if you've done it before, or if it wasn't that bad, some people love lockdown and got loads from it in terms of personal gain, the virus aside. So for some people, a lockdown is not a biggie. For some people, it was the worst thing ever. So it depends on your personal experience, which is great reflection, Peter, because it's really hard to find a list of 6 things that everyone shakes their head at, which is why the scores are very different. But interesting, if I put in a 13 one saying we're going to rehash the same old, you'd probably come out with that negative score, which was the fear at the start, or the hope that we don't do that. I'm just conscious of time. Any other reflections or insights? Okay, so I am going to ask you to just capture something that you've learned. You don't need to do it, Jürgen. You can close your eyes for this bit. I'm not going to ask you to share it. But if anyone has been surprised or learned anything, or how you might use this in the future and wants to share it, I would love to know what that is.
I think the one thing I would say is, I do occasionally reframe things, but I don't do it actively. It's almost something, if I can see something like the AI, it pops out, and I can think, okay, maybe this isn't so bad, or maybe there is an opportunity here. I don't do it actively, though. I don't automatically think, right, what's in it for me, or where the positives are. And I think that's an interesting thing to follow up on.
Absolutely. And I think it's much easier to do when we can see an opportunity, because we haven't triggered the threat response. So if it's something and we're not sure about it, our logic will go, well, it could be bad, it could be good, but I'm going to err towards good and reframe it that way. It's much easier to do when we haven't activated the threat response. When we activate the threat response, our logic switches off and the emotion kicks in. And it's much harder in that moment to go reframe the story. So we have to practice doing it, so that we think about doing it when that's been triggered, because it's much, much harder to do when we're feeling that emotional threat. So again, great reflection. Thanks. Anyone else like to share? Philip.
Hi, Tammy. Sorry about being late. Overran a meeting, unfortunately. But I think reframing the change part of it. So as in project delivery or program management, one of the things we talk about a lot is benefits. How are we delivering benefits? How are you measuring benefits? And I was just on a benefits call just before this, and what I just said just came to mind. And reframing the change was the part of it, because everybody starts defining certain things so positively, so beautifully. It's like, it's amazing. If you do this, we're gonna, what they said, if we come out of the EU, and it's gonna get fined £1 million every year or something like that, which is wonderful. People voted out of it, but the nitty-gritties of it, how do we measure that benefit? And changing that to be a positive for anybody who's adverse to that change. It kind of makes it easier to deliver that benefit. Because when I say easier to deliver the benefit, probably to explain that benefit, probably everybody's not still going to buy into it, but it's reframing that change. I think is pretty key. And I've never thought about, failure that you learn from is a smart failure. So I'll definitely use that in context going forward in terms of conversations. But that was a good bit. And I'm going to read a bit into the SCARF model today. But reframing change, I think that's pretty key.
There's 2 really good books if you want to read about it without looking up on Google.
Oh, okay, all right.
At least 2 books here.
All right.
Yeah, smart failure is a crack. I mean, you will do it. If anyone's learned to play the piano or guitar or anything where you've had to practice, you will have learned. You will have used smart failure because it focuses you on what you need to pay attention to. But we don't think of it in that way when it comes to work. In terms of benefits, I've just written a paper on that. Actually, it might be one of the newsletters coming up on LinkedIn if you want to follow that. I say don't sell people the benefits because they don't know that they've got an issue that needs the benefits that you're selling. They don't care if this project's going to make the company save money because it's not going to affect me.
Yeah.
So reframe the project you have as a challenge that's somebody's challenge. Why do I need this management system? Why do I need the AI? What's my problem that requires this AI that's going to benefit me? So reframe the benefits along with the issue that different types of groups have. Would be my advice. Yeah. Because people generally don't care. If they've decided it's a bad thing, they're not listening. Yeah. And the more you tell them it's a good thing, they don't care. They're not listening. All they're hearing is blah, blah, blah. So make sure they know what their issue is that you're going to fix, and they're much more likely to buy into it. Thank you. Anyone else? One final bit of learning. Okay, so no more learning. Greatest hopes and fears. I did ask you to share what you'd learned if you were up for it, but it was a choice. I didn't do role play, so that was good. Andrew, have you got an answer?
I do have an answer. Yes, it's a myth. So thank you for that.
Brilliant. Peter, was it the same old, same old? You've been here 10 times before.
I think that ties back into the experience. And if you've had a bad experience and something comes around and looks the same, it promotes that negative response. So in a sense, I can see it. It's then how do you break out of that?
Yeah. So perhaps a little bit different to the same old, or a reminder of how to.
Well, yeah. Look at what's different and what's different this time, and what's different with what's being done. Because sometimes things look the same, but they're not.
Yeah.
A zebra is not a horse.
Yeah. Exactly. Thank you. So I think change is a myth. Change fatigue is a myth because it depends on the change, and therefore we can change our response. I think the fatigue comes from the thinking this change might be bad for me. So I've redefined it. Do we all agree that change fatigue is a myth?
Totally.
Yeah. See, if we decide it's a myth and we tell ourselves that story and we tell everyone else that story, then it becomes a myth.
Yeah, I'd say
because we only
sorry. So I was just going to say that I don't think it's a myth. I just think it's a response that you don't necessarily need to make.
It is. So I think I think we can get fatigued by types of change that we think are bad for us, so therefore we can get rid of it. But I think the more we tell ourselves that change fatigue is real, the more we start to feel fatigued by change, because it's another reframe. So of course we can get fatigued, but it's the reframing of that phrase. The more I hear it, people, if everybody's sitting around saying this is going to be terrible, we'll start to think this is going to be terrible. So getting rid of some of these phrases, I think, can help, because it's a reframe about the change. This isn't necessarily going to be a good change for us. So how do we make it a good change for us? And it will reduce the fatigue that we're facing. Philip.
Sorry about this. Probably you guys have discussed this in the past. I mean, in earlier today, but I think one of the points. I mean, change fatigue is a myth. I think it's people just don't want to budge from their comfort zones. But I think the number of changes that you introduce into the organization every year depends, how much of change fatigue or the change aversion you cause or create within the organization.
I think it can if it's not done in a good way. But if you think, before you introduce it, if you think about introducing it in brain-friendly ways, so that's what my course is. How do we get this change in? How do we get everybody bought into this AI program in a way that they think it's a good thing, like going on their dream holiday? Because that will reduce, there's a limit to how much work we can do. So I think there's general fatigue from overwork, but I don't think it's necessarily linked to change, because life is change. But there's change that we love and there's change that we hate. And if we hate all the change, we start to brand it as change fatigue. We start to feel rubbish, and then it infects everything. So you can get rid of it by coming on the course and learning how to do brain-friendly change and getting that spread across the organization. And then the only fatigue will come from actually everyone's just got too much on there. We just need to stop piling on more work. It's not more change, it's more work.
Yep.
So I'm gonna stick with the myth thing. Kate, can you get fatigued by positive change? You probably can, but I don't think it's the change. I think it's the activity. So I don't think it's caused by one thing changing into something else. I just think it's caused by doing too much. Does that help?
Yeah, capacity, I guess. As I thought about it, I think it is just your individual capacity for change in terms of energy to juggle. They can all be really, really positive, but actually implode even if it's positive change.
Yeah. And I'm the kind of person who runs at the speed of knots, and then I'm just like, oh, I've had enough. And I've just learned to go, I've done so much stuff in the last 3 weeks. I'm just going to have a couple of days, walking, doing a jigsaw, listening to audiobooks, and not beat myself up for not doing things. So I think some of that is just managing your own energy and capacity for doing things. But it's not the change. It's not the change that's causing the fatigue. It's the doing too much, which is a different thing. So again, it's the reframe of that, which stops you thinking, I'm not going to change anything else. It's just, I'm just going to manage my time and energy a little bit better. So listen to your body around energy. It's a good thing to do. Brilliant. Any final questions? We are on the 4 o'clock. Yes, Michelle.
I just wondered, is this part of it all covered in your second book? Because I've just got your first book.
The second book, I think, given where you are, is probably yes. It's got all the SCARF model. It's got how to move forward with small steps to get you towards your goal without worrying about the goal, all of that stuff. So yeah, it would probably resonate a little more if you enjoyed the first book, because it does get into proper personal eek moments.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Still not sure how I feel about all of that story being out there, but I reframed it. Told the story how I wanted to. Brilliant. Right. Any final question, or shall I let you go back to your afternoon and a cup of tea? Oh, essentially, you'll come back. Bridging the gap, qualifications, methodology, and the importance of people. In 2 weeks' time, I will hopefully see some of you there. If you want to know more about the course, it is starting to fill up, so do drop me a note for the April and May cohorts. We do get a good group of people together and share lots and learn lots from each other as well. So, and it's all brain friendly. So hopefully see you on one of those courses. But have a lovely afternoon and see you next time.
Thank you, Tammy.
Perfect, Tammy. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Tammy.
Bye, thanks.
Bye bye.
Thank you.